I'm going to go through each claim live with you now, and we'll go through the process and you'll experience it live. But continue reading it so we have the totality.
If you can't denounce something this vile, it tells us far more about you than you realize. And look, you strike me as a guy who's not afraid of confrontation. So if you take umbrage with me voting Republican and asking your party to clearly denounce racism, sexual violence, and anti-Semitism, we can always have that conversation face-to-face instead of through chopped up YouTube clips.
Okay, well, as you well know, of course, you're welcome to come on the show, Jillian Michaels.
Yeah.
And a lot of this, some straw men here and some outright factual inaccuracies.
Here's another fun one. You remember when we were talking about Jillian Michaels and like new people to the conservative? Yeah. She responded.
To me?
To you. To the post. Okay. I guess this happened pretty recently. I don't know if we pull it up. I have to look and see. Wow, that's
a lot of words,
but it's good.
Well, here we go. Okay. If you'd spent 5 minutes on Google at S. Crowder, that's you, you'd see I've never claimed to be a conservative. I've always said I'm a moderate who happens to enjoy the company of conservatives and prefers the way they govern over progressives. And if you only trust the concerns of established conservatives, Charlie Kirk was fairly adamant that there's no place for Fuentes in conservatism. To address the rest of your clip montage, my early vote was for Kennedy because America's health has always been my priority, or Americans' health. But that's not the point.
Oh my gosh, this is long.
It is long. I don't know how much I should read. All of it?
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah,
okay.
but that's not the point. All right.
Yeah, this isn't ideological. It's about basic decency. So let me ask you plainly. You're comfortable with the claim that women want to be raped. There's no statistic, moral framework, or political philosophy that validates that. None. You're an idiot.
Hold on a second. I was going to say, hold on. You guys have the statistic ready, right? The study from Mission Control. But go ahead and continue. Yes. Mission Control, you can grab that. But yes.
That's so stupid.
Okay.
And as I told Don Jr. in the part of the conversation you didn't show, if conservatives can't immediately and unequivocally reject this as not conservatism, progressives will own the midterms 2028 and beyond. That's not partisan. It's obvious. Hold on. That's not what you said. You said if they
Hold on a second. Can I just read all of it? And then I'm going to ask you to read parts. Yeah, it is. This is my Hallmark card.
She is calling.
And then I'm going to ask you to read individually because I'm going to go through each claim live with you now. And we'll go through the process and you'll experience it live. But continue reading it so we have the totality.
If you can't denounce something this vile, it tells us far more about you than you realize. And look, you strike me as a guy who's not afraid of confrontation. So if you take umbrage with me voting Republican and asking your party to clearly denounce racism, sexual violence, and anti-Semitism, we can always have that conversation face-to-face instead of through chopped up YouTube clips.
Okay, well, as you well know, of course, you're welcome to come on the show, Jillian Michaels.
Yeah.
And a lot of this, some straw men here and some outright factual inaccuracies. Now, and by the way, well, okay, let's go through this point by point, because right now I'm looking at all of it going like, this is wrong, this is wrong. So let's read it again, start it, and then I'll ask you to pause, Gerald. I apologize. Okay. So let's go through the first claims.
All right, let's see. So you want me to do it where
she addressed just read from the top and I'll say pause.
Oh, right. Okay, from the top.
So one of the claims.
Okay, if you'd spent more than 5 minutes, you'd see I've never been conservative. I've always said I'm a moderate who enjoys the company of conservatives and prefers the way they govern over progressives.
Okay, pause. Well, then fine. No issues with me. You're not a conservative. You're not a Republican. I'm fine with that. Then don't tell people who are conservative, Republican, or America First how they should govern their party or their movement. My issue is with a woman new to this telling people that you have to do this. I understand that you'll frame it as though it's just advice because of a midterm, but I'm not talking about political advice. I'm talking about ideologically. If you are not a conservative, if you are not MAGA, if you are not America First, if you are not right wing, then I have no qualms with you. Just don't tell us how to run our own show. Continue. Next claim.
All right. So, and if you only trust the concerns of established conservatives, Charlie Kirk was fairly adamant that there's no place for Fuentes in conservatism.
Okay, pause. That's a straw man. I don't only trust the concern of established conservatives. I break with them on quite a bit. And then you have to define what that is. What do you mean by established conservatives? That's a term that people use, and it's often used by people who don't identify as conservative. Do you mean like Thomas Sowell? Do you mean someone like George Washington? Do you mean Reagan? Or do you mean Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro? Or I don't even understand what she's claiming here, because she's making the case that it is incumbent upon everyone to disavow Nick Fuentes. I disagree with Nick Fuentes. And just like I'll host you, I will host him. And I don't like people like you intertwining the idea of disavowing with never talking to. I've talked with people who've literally said that I am of no value to the world. Imams, feminists, transgender mayors. So that's the problem that I have with conflating. But I don't know what you mean by trusting established conservatives. Let's go on to the next claim.
All right, so the next claim's here. But that's not the point. Sorry. To address the rest of your clipped montage, my early vote was for Kennedy because Americans' health has always been my priority, but that's not the point.
Okay, hold on a second. Pause. Clipped montage. I got the implication there. Do you run clips on your show? Jillian? Let me ask you this. I know you do. Right? That's rhetorical. Do you provide references with the full videos for every single clip you run on your show? I do. Do you tell people to go and watch the full segment for context? I do. Every single show. Sure you want to make that implication? And I did not clip you out of context. I showed the clip in context to the relevant point and provided links. And I advocate that everyone go and watch your entire show. If there's something that we missed, I'm not seeing it in this post, then we can address it. But that is common practice here. We don't always get it right. Do you put in the same effort? Do you have a bibliography for every single show? Otherwise, probably sit those kinds of implications on your back burner. Next claim.
Let me put it right here. So let me ask you, this isn't ideological. It's about basic decency. So let me...
Pause. Sorry, Gerald.
I'm good. You're good.
Who defines basic decency?
Yeah.
Who defines basic decency? And that does matter because we're going to determine basic decency for a society. That brings us back to how is that determined? By a very specific ideology. That's why I'm conservative. It's conserving the founding ideology of this country. That's what determines basic decency. Otherwise, who's going to determine it? You? Nick Fuentes? Because you both think that you have a corner on basic decency. And I don't necessarily, I don't know all of yours. I can tell you this, not disavow. I don't agree with Nick on quite a few of his views as they relate to basic decency. I guarantee you I disagree with yours because, like you said, you were a lifelong more so liberal who's now a moderate. Or maybe a lifelong moderate who just voted Republican for the first time. I don't want to mischaracterize you, but you would have very different views on basic decency than I do. So the only way you can establish it is ideological as far as the founding of this country, because I don't want you or Nick Fuentes determining what is basic decency. Let's go on to the next claim.
All right. So it says, so let me ask you plainly, you're comfortable with the claim that, quote, women want to be raped?
Hold on a second. Pause. No, not only am I not comfortable with the claim that women want to be raped, I'm intensely uncomfortable with you mischaracterizing the viewpoint that women want to be raped. Meaning you can take words, but you can take them out of context. Does anyone here think it's okay to say that, yeah, women want to be violently raped in an alleyway? No. But where would that come from? And this is my issue, right? I probably disagree with Nick Fuentes on a whole lot more than you fully understand. But when you pull that quote, seems a whole lot like that leftist feminist is still in you because it's out of context. You know what you accused me of doing? There is a study, and hopefully Mission Control could pull it up. I believe it's 2/3 of women have, to some varying degrees, rape fantasies. Am I right about that?
62%. So results indicated that 62% of women have had a rape fantasy.
Which is somewhat higher than previous estimates.
Yeah, this is from PubMed.
This is from PubMed. Yeah. Now, I understand, again, context, Jillian. I understand that when women say they have a rape fantasy, what they really mean, and I also believe that Nick Fuentes probably understands this, and I think that you probably know this as well. It usually means a woman has a fantasy about being ravaged by an attractive man who lusts for her. His carnal desire for her is so overpowering that he can't help himself, and usually he's 6 foot, making 6 figures with a 6-pack. Her rape fantasy isn't being raped by the Somalian pirate crackhead in the alleyway. I understand that. But someone saying, well, that's the thing, women, if they're trying to make a point, and it's in a long list of points, half of women, I believe her claim was, Nick Fuentes said half of women have a rape fantasy.
None. No. She said,
she's saying that Nick Fuentes
said there's no statistic, moral framework, or political philosophy that validates that. None.
So
just
60
that women want to be raped. Period.
Yeah.
Period.
First off, rape is bad.
Yes.
Jillian Michaels. No one should rape, to be clear. But I think it's important to define what that is and not mischaracterize people so that you can strawman them. You know, it'd be a lot easier if you had Nick Fuentes on. I'll have you on. How about you have him on? Maybe he can clarify. I would imagine, and again, I disagree. This is a no-win proposition because a lot of people are going to be mad no matter what I say. I would imagine that Nick Fuentes would probably clarify and point you to the study that 62% of women have a rape fantasy that you can find in PubMed. The good news is we provide all of our references, link in the description. Again, I ask, do you? So where did that number come from? Published medical journal.
Pull it back up real quick. Here's the reason I say that. They have these fantasies at a frequency of about 4 times per year, with 14% of participants reporting they had a rape fantasy at least once a week. So it's not like it's a one-time thing. It seems to be a recurring fantasy that a lot of women have.
No one is advocating for rape, aside from Islamic societies.
That's true.
No one is advocating for the idea that women are just asking for it and want to be raped, so you should rape them. It's a valid point to make that sexual norms and gender dynamics tell us, and by the way, a very large body of data suggest that women like sexually dominant men. And they, in some of these studies, categorized it as a rape fantasy. That is not the same as saying that women want to be violently raped, and that is certainly not tantamount to saying that as a society, since we can make this claim, we should allow women to be raped. Some societies do because they view it as, you know, what you refer to as basic decency. Next claim.
All right. As I told Don Jr. in the part of the conversation you didn't show, if conservatives can't immediately and unequivocally reject this as not conservatism, progressives will own the midterms 2028 and beyond. That's not partisan. It's obvious.
I understand that point, and I would say that's a valid point to make. I don't necessarily know that it's clear that that's correct, but I think it's a valid opinion to have if you're saying, hey, you need to distance yourself from this. That being said, we also had people who said, you need to distance yourself from the immigration issue. People saying you need to distance yourself from the abortion issue. For a long time, people said you need to distance yourself from the gun issue after Columbine, after Parkland, after I'm trying to remember the other one. There was Parkland, Columbine was a big one. What was the other? Newtown.
Yeah.
Guess what? It's now the single losingest issue for Democrats. In other words, what is not politically a winning strategy now, that does not determine whether it is correct or not. Now that, put that aside, that is outside of the conversation to have, is Nick Fuentes right? I think he's wrong about a lot, and I'll talk with him about it. I would suggest that you do the same. The problem I have is with people who have no understanding as to what conservatism, as to what MAGA is, as to what America First is, telling people what they should do, like you're some kind of oracle. And by the way, it's nothing new and it's not particularly original. My primary problem is with you telling people what they need to do or risk losing your vote. It's not one that I particularly value, and I don't think that it's an accurate bellwether as to the future of conservatism. Next claim.
If you can't denounce something this vile, it tells us far more about you than you realize.
Oh, well, that's the feminist thing. That's the tell me you're a feminist without saying you're a feminist. If you can't denounce this person who you haven't spoken with yet based on my quote that I am taking out of context while telling you that playing my actual clip and telling people to go watch the whole interview is out of context, then it says more about your character. Okay, what does this say about my character? I disagree with Nick Fuentes on a whole lot. I think there's a problem with some of his views. I'm going to host him. We're going to talk about it. I would encourage you to do so. And 62% of women, according to the data we have available to us, have rape fantasies. What does that say about me? What does it say about you? Let's not even indict your character. Intellectually. Were you aware of this? Next claim.
And look, you strike me as a guy who's not afraid of confrontation, so if you take umbrage with me voting Republican and asking your party to clearly denounce racism, sexual violence, and anti-Semitism, we can always have the conversation face-to-face instead of through chopped-up YouTube clips.
Music to my ears. Bring it back up one more time if you take umbrage. Again, this is a mischaracterization, and it's trying to achieve some sort of victim currency here. I didn't say I take umbrage with you voting Republican. I'm glad that you're voting Republican. Hey, I don't know what your worldview is faith-wise. I would also welcome you into my church. If you don't know Jesus Christ, your Lord and Savior, I'd like the opportunity to evangelize to you and provide you with all of the information available that you would need to make a decision. I'm not going to have you preach. First of all, because you're a woman, so you can't be a pastor or a reverend, but most importantly, because you're new here. So you should sit and learn. Absolutely, you can go to church. Absolutely, you can take part in the activities. And you should sit and learn and submit yourself to the authority of those who have already gained the experience so that they are able to teach. You know, like you do with glute raises. You know it better than them. If someone came in and told you how to train people who just recently got on a fitness kick, you'd probably say, well, thanks, I'm glad you're in the gym. But don't tell me how to do something that I've spent my entire life doing. Toning butts. Making fat people get on a treadmill on a reality TV show. I am glad that you have voted Republican. I also understand, by your own description, that you're a fair weather voter, and that could go either way. And so I don't think that we should be basing our strategy or basing any compromising of our principles upon the advice of someone who is new here and doesn't share our principles. I'm glad that you voted Republican. I also would advise people to probably not take advice from someone who is so blissfully unaware as to the data that 62% of women have rape fantasies, and that does not equate to saying women all want to be raped. I don't know if you're ignorant on this issue, and that doesn't mean you're stupid. I don't know if you're ignorant on this issue or if you are manipulating. But it is one of those two, because you're wrong in the way you're trying to mischaracterize people and then extend your advice. Well, I reject your mischaracterization, I reject your straw man, and I reject your advice. Doesn't mean that I reject you as a person. And it doesn't mean that I would reject you as a personal trainer. I mean, I probably would, but
there's another mischaracterization there too. She says you won't condemn, well, I don't remember the words she said, but won't condemn sexual violence.
Racism, sexual violence, and anti-Semitism.
So she's implying that because you wouldn't say you disavow Nick Fuentes, that you are okay with sexual violence? Because he quoted a stat she didn't know about?
I don't know if he quoted a stat. It could be like Donald Trump saying hoax, where we say, well, maybe
Sure.
it wasn't put eloquently. But
I think he said women want to be raped in those contexts, but I don't think he was saying just randomly raped by somebody off the street. He was talking about, I believe, the fantasies that women have.
Is Jillian Michaels, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know. Is she a lesbian or is she heterosexual? Do we know?
I don't know.
Do we know? Can someone look that up? I genuinely don't know. I believe for some reason that she might be
I don't think so.
a lesbian. And again, I could be totally wrong on this.
Yes, her spouse is Deshauna Marie Menudo.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Well, look, you
love
may
Menudo
differ.
when I'm hungover.
You may differ with 62% of women, and I say this respectfully, because you fear the peen. You recoil at the peen. Change the word rape to ravage. To ravage.
There you go.
And I'm okay with the statement. Women, in general, want to be ravaged sexually. Again, in a consensual relationship by someone they love. That's what they like. And you know what? I'll lose some Christians here because they'll get mad at me saying, oh, come on, that's not something we should discuss. No, we should. Also, young men, it's important that you know that. Because if you're not able to ever take sexual control, you will lose attractiveness in the eyes of your female partner. Again, I find it difficult to take advice from a lesbian on male-female intersexual dynamics because you don't like it. It's like someone going, damn it, I hate ice cream. What do you do at Neapolitan? It's like, no, I give a shit what you say. You hate ice cream. You hate the D. women who love the D, women who want the D, women who in some capacity have a need for the D biologically, evolutionarily, they like to be ravaged by the D. A majority, not some, a majority. No one is advocating for rape. And that's a liberal tactic. That's a leftist tactic to use. That's the problem I have. And I will tell you this too, it kind of rubs me the wrong way where someone who socially would not share my values or the values of people under the umbrella of conservatism, America first, telling the president's son what he should do, not advising, but it's a requirement that he disavow someone politically. And especially when you know that this is a man who has been canceled in one capacity or another, to use that term, who would obviously be hesitant to do that to someone else, even if he disagrees with him. These two are not logically inconsistent. I think J.D. Vance said Nick Fuentes is an idiot or something like that, and said, and absolutely, he has the right to say what he says.
Yeah.
And the truth is, I can't disavow any human being if I don't know all of their views. And then, by the way, that's a challenge with Nick Fuentes because he kind of switches them a whole lot. I will say this. I know enough about Mamdani's views that I disavow Mamdani, I guess. But what does that mean? I'm not a socialist. And so if Nick Fuentes doesn't identify as a conservative, and as I understand it, he doesn't, why is it incumbent upon conservatives to disavow him? There's nothing that's intellectually curious, seemingly genuine, or consistent in your assertions here. And I think if you want to tell someone that they're clipping something out of context to try and play some gotcha, along with the implication that I wouldn't face you, you're talking to the wrong guy. And I think that's because you're new around these parts. But we can talk about it. And I will host you very respectfully, even if you are a feminist lesbian who's new to the party. Hey, if you're still watching this, you may be one of the 6 million or so subscribers on YouTube who is, for one reason or another, I don't understand it, still here. So back in the day, I would say click one of these videos and subscribe, but really just head on over to my channel on Rumble. Follow me there. I'm live 5 days a week, 11 a.m. Eastern, and I actually say the things that I mean to say. On YouTube, it's everyone here is kind of neutered, really, and there's just a general lack of testicular energy, but I mean that in the heterosexual way, mostly.